Welcome to my show. A guest here. His name is Phillip Woolgar. Mr. Phillip, how are you doing, sir?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, sir, Mr. Phillip. Firstly, you are the founder of White Power Global. You are
Okay.
also a consultant. Can you please, sir, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, sir?
Like in general, well, about myself, I started out as a newspaper reporter and worked in small towns throughout Canada, but dreamed of something bigger because the newspaper industry was taking a crumble. And so I moved my operations online back in 2012, offering writing services. And one of those services is for assisting with business plans and helping companies get their SEO content up to on their websites.
Mm.
And then gradually, slowly, we evolved into immigration consulting. I moved to the United States on an E2 visa. And so back in 2020, we started offering E2 visa writing services. So it's evolved from doing basic business plans into business consulting and now into immigration consulting for the past 5 years or so. So that's how it kind of went.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. And secondly, there will be something that definitely inspired you to help entrepreneurs and also investors gain US entry. What do you think really inspired you, sir?
Well, I knew that it was important for my family
Mm.
to achieve our dreams and what we envision for our future. And so there's not only the element of it being a viable option when offering a service through your business for profitability, but also when I take on these clients, I remember the position I was in when I was wanting to move to the United States and start my business up here. And so it's on a personal level at that point where I'm helping out the families because on the E2 visa, not only is it the principal applicant that comes down, but also they have sub applicants like spouse, and then any dependent under 21 can come. So any kids under 21 who aren't yet married, which is almost every person under 21 these days, like in the 1950s, maybe they got married when they're 19 or 20, but these days, anybody under 21, pretty much in most cases, are not married. So you can bring them down as well with you. So I see the familial component in helping everybody get their whole families down there and help them achieve their dreams here.
Mm. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. And this E2 visa is something people want know what it's all about, sir. So can you please, sir, explain what E2 visa is and who do you think are qualified for it, sir?
E2 visa is an investor visa for treaty countries. So treaty countries include Canada, Australia, UK, Netherlands, Italy, France. There's many of them. And we primarily deal with those countries just because they're the largest and they're the most frequently looking to move to the US since those many of those countries speak English.
Mm.
So the E2 visa, most people that come to us have businesses in those countries and they're looking to expand them to the US. They want to move to the US in order to operate and to open those businesses. Many people are looking to immigrate to the US permanently. The E2 visa gives you 5 years. The consulate can decide between 2 to 5 years. We almost always get accepted for 5 years. And it also depends on the treaty country that the person is coming from. But in almost every case, it's the 5 year visa that they can come here with. So it's for business people or investors who want to open up a new enterprise in the US. And often that's people who have those businesses that they're looking to expand. But some people are first time business owners. They want to start their first business in the US. And those cases, they open up a new enterprise, they get it incorporated, and then they show in the business plan how they're going to get the business operating and being marginal so that they can support their family. So those are usually the type of investors we see. And often there are people who have digital businesses. It's not always the case, but often people who have a digital business that can be operated anywhere in the world. So wherever you get an internet connection, you can operate that. They're looking to bring those because they're kind of the easiest to bring over, but not in every situation. Some people, for example, would have, for example, a restaurant in the UK, and then they want to open the restaurant in the US. So this E2 visa would give them the opportunity to do that. But it doesn't limit the type of business that you can open in the United States. And so those are the type of people that we usually bring over here.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. And I just definitely believe that it could not be, every single business that could be, taken to the United States. So, do you think there are any specific type of business that are more likely to qualify for the E2 visa, sir?
We've actually had a 100% success rate. So they're really looking for the investment portion. That's the biggest component. So if you are somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur or an existing entrepreneur and you want to bring your business to the United States or start a new one up here, and you've got like $100 to spend, that's not going to be approved. So it doesn't matter if it's a real estate brokerage, a construction company, you want to franchise a business, or you want to bring over your e-commerce business like your Shopify store. It doesn't really matter as long as the business is a new business, which actually means after 1990. So that's not really necessarily like considered new, but I guess compared to a lot of the larger corporations, it would be. You wouldn't, for example, be able to franchise McDonald's and have that as like a new operation. I think actually maybe you can do some fast food restaurants, but they're pretty limited. Perhaps Subway, I think maybe they started after 1990. You could probably franchise that, but I'd have to double check on that. So it's any kind of business where you've got some money to invest. The consulate's pretty much looking for people who have money to put into the economy here in order to get everything rolling in the United States. And it doesn't really matter what type of business it is. Of course, you have to show that the business is likely going to be profitable, that you've made that significant, they call it a significant investment. That can vary depending on the business, and that the investment is at risk. That means it can't be recovered. And other than that, if you got the capital, we've had approval for people applying with $20,000. That happened once. I was a little bit nervous about it because 20,000 to me isn't really significant, but they approved it nonetheless. You'll see on the internet, it'll say, you got to put $100,000 in. We haven't seen that as the case. Most people that we process and help get their E2 visas, it's around $50,000. But it can be a lot less, and it has been as low as 20,000.
Mm. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. And they used to say, some things doesn't last forever. There could be, time for this E2 visa. So how long do you think the E2 visa is typically valid? And how do you think it can be renewed, sir?
It's valid normally for 5 years, but it's 2 to 5 years is what they say. But almost every situation, we get it for 5 years. Also depends on the country that you're coming from. They'll consider that, but they take a look at the likelihood that the business is going to be successful. 5 years is generally what they approve it for. It can be renewed every 5 years. So if your company is doing well, and you're paying your taxes, and you haven't committed any crimes when you're here,
Mm.
and everything looks good, then you're good to go for another visa. It's relatively easy to renew it. You don't need to go to an interview. The first time you get your E2 visa, you have to go to an interview, an in-person interview at the consulate in the country that you're applying from. But if you renew after 5 years, that's not required. You just got to show that you've been paying your taxes, that the company is making money, and that it's got a growth trajectory. It doesn't necessarily need a growth trajectory, but it can be looking like it's gonna go bankrupt the next year. And that's what they look for. You can renew that every 5 years. While you're here, a lot of our clients go for what's called an EB-5 because they want to have permanent status here. They want to become U.S. citizens. And so during the initial 5 years, or perhaps after renewal, they'll apply for the EB-5, which requires them to invest 1.3 million and hire a minimum of 10 people for at least 2 years. If you meet those two requirements after you bring your business in on the E2, then you've got a conditional approval, and then they'll give you the 2 years conditional approval. And if you meet those requirements of the 1.3 million and hiring at least 10 people for a minimum of 2 years, full-time staffers from the United States, then they'll give you the EB-5.
Mm. Thank you so much thank you so much, Mr. Philip. And I remembered when you said people who are probably under 21, they are not typically, married. They could also follow the family member to the United States. So I would like to ask, like, can family member, accompanying an E2 visa holder, and are they also allowed to work or probably even study in the United States, sir?
The spouse can, but the dependents cannot.
Okay.
Uh, that's the short answer. And then the principal applicant can't work for another company while they're here. They can only work for the company that they're bringing over because they're expected to have that marginal enough to be able to pay themselves. Of course, they could, if depending on the business, they might be able to do consulting through their business. Like I mentioned before, I'm from Canada originally, and I've been here in the United States on an E2 visa for the past 2 years. The company that I brought over as a treaty investor was established in Canada for 10 years or so before we came over. And here, we're incorporated as RightPal Global LLC in Canada as RightPal Global Inc. And I'm able to work for that company. But I couldn't go out and work for another company as an immigration consultant or anything, or work at McDonald's if I wanted the discount or anything like that. They, they, but I could have clients come through my business, and that would kind of be like a consulting thing. But to answer your question, the spouse can work for another company in the US, whatever company, doesn't matter, but the kids cannot.
Mm. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. And it could get to a time, it does happen. The business might struggle to, financially to survive, probably maybe in the country. So, what do you think happens if the business struggles financially? And do you think there are any protection for each visa holders in this case, sir?
If they struggle financially as like over the 5 years, for example, and they're looking for renewal, it depends on the definition of struggle, but if it's not making a profit, they in all likelihood would not be able to renew unless they made some convincing case that, okay, in our 6th year, we're gonna, you know, it's gonna go gangbusters and we're gonna make a huge profit. It's not likely going to get approved. If it's suffering, not doing well in terms of like the owner's able to take like $40,000 out of the company per year. I mean, then it would be determined like where they're living and whether $40,000 is sufficient in order to support the E2 visa holder's family. So they call it being marginal. You have to basically pay yourself enough in order to live without, you know, relying on social welfare or different things like that. So if it's struggling, they're not going to be reapproved. But if, for example, it had a good year in its first couple years and then it struggled, and then there's a clear path to turn it around, you can make the argument that good things are going to come. Or, if it's a new business, it often takes some time to become successful. So from the first year, it loses 100K, second year, 75K, third year, 50K, fourth year, 25K, and fifth year breaks even. That might be a good argument being like, okay, look, we're going to be profitable next year by 25,000. That's our projection. And there's track record to show that the operations are improving. In all likelihood, that would probably be approved for renewal.
Hmm. Completely agree. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. It's definitely not easy. Building a business is something that is really, really, really tough. Thank you, sir. And there's something they call green card. And you said it there. I heard when you said some people usually like to, have the permanent residency. So I would like to ask, can the E2 visa lead to a green card or a permanent residency? And what options are available if so, sir?
Yeah, so while the option that we deal with is the EB5 visa, there's other options. We're the experts in E2 and EB5. So with the EB5, it's the one where you invest $1.3 million and you hire a minimum of 10 people for at least 2 years. They'll give you a conditional approval, and then you got the 2 years to spend the 1.3 million and hire the 10 people for a minimum of 2 years. There's also other different components, like if you are a clear benefit to the welfare of the country, like If you have some kind of a rare skill or you're part of a charity that's doing well here, you're helping decrease homelessness, helping home affordability, or any political issues that you as a skilled person are in the country for, you can apply for a different visa. I can't recall the name of it, but there's different types that depending on your specific situation, you could get a green card in the United States. There's a green card lottery, but that's, I mean, that's just like by chance. Doesn't have anything to do with your personal skills. But the one that we specialize in is the EP5 visa.
All right. Well said. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. And some people will want to get this E2 visa for the first time, sir. What advice do you think you can give to someone considering the E2 visa, sir?
The advice I would give would be to make sure that the investment you make, you're confident that you're going to be recovering it. Otherwise, it's a great risk.
Mm.
Unless you're a trust fund baby and your father gave you $100,000 to invest in and you don't really care. But if you're like, the rest of us, and you want to have a successful business, it's important to make sure uh, that you're certain that your business is going to be successful, or you're not taking too big of a risk where if you invest $50,000, you're going to lose that because you're not approved for the E2 visa. That could be through an assertion that you can't operate the business from your home country and open it up in the US, or the $50,000 is going to benefit you in a way other than just getting your E2 visa. I mean, we do have a 100% approval rate. So if you do have that investment and you got a clean personal history, then there's a very good likelihood that you're going to be accepted. But my advice to people who, like, for example, if you're from Canada and you have a new business idea and you think that it's going to be operating the best in the US and you're struggling to put together the investment, but you just barely do it and you're like, okay, here it goes. I would say that's too risky. So I would just make sure that you're confident that either the money can be recovered in some way or that you're investing in it for the benefit of something other than getting your E2 visa, or that you can still operate it even if you're not approved for the E2 visa. So I wouldn't want to see somebody apply for the E2 visa after making $50,000 investment that does no good for them if they're not approved for the E2 visa. So it's about balancing risk from a business owner's perspective. That's how I would handle that. That's more of like a business question rather than immigration consultant. The business component is definitely something you have to consider. We advise of that, right, pal, as well. Like the business component, we'll take a look at your investment and see whether or not that's going to be something that's going to be approved. We actually don't take any clients if we see that they're making an investment that's not going to be approved. We're like, look, try something else, and then we'll process your application because, like I mentioned at the beginning, we're taking a look at it from more of like an empathetic standpoint, not just a pure profit standpoint. We want to make sure that people are going to be approved, that our approval rate is remains at 100%, and that we're not wasting their time and our time. And also, we have a approval guarantee. So we don't want to take somebody on who's not going to be approved because we're just going to end up spending our resources and our time and then having to refund the money anyways. So, um, yeah, so from a business perspective, definitely it would be wise for them to ensure that that money is either recoverable in some way or it's an investment in something else in the E2 visa, or that they just don't care about losing the money. If that's, it's the case for, 5% of people, I guess.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Philip. And also, even seeking advice from people like you will also be great. Meeting you, getting consulting time to discuss more on it so that they could also know if they are going to be valid or not. So, thank you so much, sir. Lastly, obviously, there's a question I used to just ask on my show. So, there are a lot of things that have happened in the past, which, we feel it is missing in our time today. So from the ancestors, from the forefathers, if there's anything you feel like, is missing in the past and you would just love to, bring back, you wish it to have been in our time today, what do you think that thing would be, sir?
From the forefathers, or what about like 25 years ago? I got a good example for 25 years ago. If I could
Mm,
bring something back from 25 years ago, does that count?
yes, that is missing, could be missing in
Yeah,
that time.
$5 clicks on on Google. From a business owner standpoint, if I could go back 25 years to the time where Jeff Bezos was starting up Amazon, where he paid 5 cents per click, I would want to go back there. Or if I could go back to the 1980s with the information I have now and invest in Apple, that's something I would like.
Yeah.
Also, probably to answer your question more directly, is I think a time with less social media would be good. I mean, it definitely is a benefit to me as a business owner because I can travel wherever I want based on having an e-commerce company. But I would just like a lot more personal engagement in in the world rather than relying on technology. And it's just going to be more and more like that. But that's more of a philosophical thing than anything else.
All right, sir. Mr. Philip, I want to personally thank you for giving this E2 visa information to the audience. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
All right, now. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.